Atheism.
What's your name?
Strabo.
Strabo, yes. Zishan, yeah?
Jisan.
Zishan.
Jisan.
Zishan.
Shan.
Easy.
Zishan.
Yeah, Zishan. So Strabo, remember atheism is a position in which a person is convinced that there is no God. And the discussion that we had last time was, I posed a question, maybe, if I remember correctly, I said, is it possible that maybe the best argument hasn't reached you, or an argument has reached you and maybe you've misconstrued it? And I think if I recall, you said, yes, that's possible. So I said, then your position should be more of, you shouldn't smoke, you know.
That's what I was telling him. Yeah.
I'm surprised you smoke. Why do you smoke?
It's one of the pleasures of life.
It's peer pressure, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally, yeah. No, it wasn't really. I mean, I think nicotine is one of the great pleasures, and actually if God has created the world, then surely he's endowed it with some good things for us to consume, and isn't nicotine one of them?
But he also tells us as well that certain things, the harms outweigh the positives, and this is one of those things, that when the harms outweigh the positives, then that thing net worth, the net kind of value of that is it's a negative. For example, drugs, alcohol, anything that you do in excess that a person becomes addicted to, it's a problem.
So do you believe that God put these substances upon the earth in order to tempt us so that we can grow stronger in our abstinence?
I think it's a bit of both. For example, when you seem like you've come from a grammar school, maybe I'm judging a book by its cover.
I went to school outside London.
Okay, respect to that. So when you're doing these exams, 11 plus or whatever they may be, even though you've had hopefully you've had a chilled environment in the classroom, when you're sitting there in front of the exam paper, it says problem 1, problem 2, problem 3. It's riddled with problems. Why? Because the teacher is testing you to see what you've learnt from your experiences. So it's definitely one aspect is life is a test, and the other aspect is, of course, that it is through contrasts that we appreciate the beauty of life. For example, you appreciate hot because of cold, tall because of short, and etc. And of course, it is these things that make you stronger. For example, if you've been through a testing time, that's when you learn patience. If, for example, I go to the gym, even though you maybe can or can't tell, but I'm there pulling and pushing and doing leg day and all this sort of stuff, and you're thinking, you know what, this is painful. The next day I'm sore, my legs, they're aching. However, it's through that pain that I know my muscles are growing. You see, so
do you think that the true glory of that is being an individual and deciding to embrace suffering through exercise or through abstinence in order to improve as an individual? Are you not your own master and judge and teacher?
I definitely, I can empathize with this optimistic approach that you have. However, I think a very apt example that you gave was when you put the cigarette away. You are somebody that, forgive my optimism, somebody who's got their future ahead of them, you're very young, I don't see gray hairs on you, I don't see you, with back problems or whatnot. So the cigarette seems like a contradiction to you, excelling in life, because I'm sure we're told in primary school it's got tar, it's got nicotine, messes you up, the potential of cancer increases. So there's so many harms, and it says on the cigarette that smoking kills. However, by you exercising your free will, you're exercising it in a way that's detrimental to yourself. Why? Because you don't necessarily have that moral anchorage that will be a benefit to you. You are giving more preference and priority to your joy and to your pleasure. And that's where... I
certainly am, yes.
Well, that's the problem, because in certain things, a person might go beyond that capability and might start bringing harm to society. They might start harming kids because they say, you know what?
I think it's a bit of a leap to say because someone smokes. I agree there needs to be a moral foundation for our actions.
Let me just finish the point, yeah?
God, yes.
So the point that I was saying was, when a person has no moral boundaries, then a person is free to do whatever. And if the predication of that is pleasure, a person might say, you know what, a cigarette, boom. I know many people, they start at a cigarette, then, ooh, free Palestine. Then they'll move on to marijuana and say, you know what, nah, it doesn't really affect you too much, it's just weed, it's this and that. Then they say sex is sex, love is love. Yeah, then, you know what, she looks 18, but she's 17. She looks 17, but she's 16. When there's no moral anchorage, when there's no kind of a moral guideline for you, do you see how it can
I accept that, but I think the
snowball.
The true power that we possess is that we can forge and create our values, and we have the freedom to submit to a set of values or deny them. And these moral laws are not weaved into the fabric of the universe. They are a construction of humans, and morality comes from humans' desire to be social creatures. So in order to live with you and with my neighbours, I have to naturally treat people in a certain way. I cannot rob and kill them because that would destroy my social desire. So I just think morality comes from a social...
What do you mean? So killing somebody will kill you?
Killing someone will, obviously, killing people will destroy the group that we are so committed to maintaining and being part of. So I think morality is birthed from our social desire. And I think that,
I think the issue with that, Strawbro, is it sounds, again, good in theory, but in practicality, the more we unpack this, you'll notice that there'll be an inconsistency to this. For example, you're saying killing somebody is wrong. Yeah? However, what if that person is coming to kill you and your family and for survival? Can you defend yourself in killing that person?
That's a very good question. And in that kind of case, I would regard the murderer as existing beyond my group. And the group, I think...
So you would murder?
If someone was going to kill my family, then I would kill him first.
There you go.
Because my priorities are with my family.
Let me give you another example.
But may I say why that is? Because I do not... If someone's trying to kill my group, then I see them beyond my group and therefore beyond my moral obligations. I think lots of the atrocities humans commit towards one another is by separating them from their group and therefore separating moral obligations towards them.
What do you mean by group?
I mean the people you have a moral obligation to.
Isn't that everybody?
That's what I think. But I think that's because of our shared humanity and not because of our shared souls or beliefs or skin colour. It's because we're all humans and therefore equal and morally worthy.
What if you've got two people and they've got a different stance on torture? One person thinks torture is okay, one person thinks torture is wrong. Both of them are morally justified. Are they outside of the group?
I think as long as you don't perpetrate the violence, then you...
No, you are. It's torture.
Oh, you're saying these two people both have different views
on torture. As I'm sure we would as well.
Absolutely awful two characters. I definitely wouldn't want to meet them at any point, too.
No, one is pro-torture, the other is anti-torture. I think you'd be pro-torture in certain situations as well.
I think
isn't it?
Yeah, I would never torture someone. I would try and persuade them that their position is incorrect through reason and argumentation.
So there's a thought experiment done in philosophy. Yeah. They say that a woman is being held and tortured in a building, but because of her torture, the town survives. Yeah? So in other words, happiness of the masses. Would you be okay with the torture of this woman just for the survival of this whole town?
Well, it's a very thorny moral dilemma. And
welcome to philosophy.
Yes, exactly. And to be honest, thank God I've never been in that scenario. I genuinely don't know how I would react. I think I would. But does religion give you an answer to that moral dilemma?
Yes, of course.
What would you say from your perspective?
I want to hear first.
Well, if there's a whole village with my family and relations and friends, and extracting information is necessary for their survival, then I would realise that I would have to kill my own humanity. If I tortured someone, I would kill my own humanity. I would never wake up in the same way and look at myself in the mirror the same. But for those who I really love, I would kill myself for their continued survival. So yes, I would. I would have
So you would
to.
torture that
But in doing so, I would also torture myself and kill myself
morally.
permanently.
So do you see, Strawborough, that when we start going into these dilemmas and we start, because in certain countries, I'll give you an example, there's a more contemporary example.
May I ask you this question, because I'm curious to see what your response is.
With regards to the torturing of that
Yes,
girl
in the village.
and everybody else,
Yes. What would you say?
yeah, we'd say the torture of that girl is absolutely abhorrent.
Yes, of course.
And that needs to be dealt with, and those people need to be brought to justice.
And if your family are going to die as a consequence, you would just sit back and watch it all happen.
We say to save my family on the foundation of injustice is wrong.
That's it. I think that's
you see?
That's a stance I also want to adopt. But if I was really staring into the eyes of my younger brother and parents,
But Strawborough, that's what I'm saying.
I couldn't stand by and just watch them perish.
And that's why, Strawborough, we believe in objective morality that comes top down from God, because when it comes to ourselves, even let's just say if your friend's here and your friend does something wrong, you love your friend, you've helped him, and he's like a project for you. Anytime he's in problems, you help him out. Now he's done something else. You would bend your morality just to help him out, and you would justify it, and you'd say, you know what, I'll tell him this, I'll tell him that. Because the thing is, we are naturally predisposed as human beings to a number of things. For example, the studies that have been done that children as young as 4, 85+% of children will lie just to get out of a situation. Humans are more inclined towards rest. They are more inclined towards helping their clan and their tribe, irrespective of if they are right or if they're wrong. There have been countless sociological experiments done on this, and that's why, Strawborough, we get threatened. We get threatened to stay out of the bus lane, and we've got traffic rules. That's why we've got rules pertaining, societal decadence, because if as human beings they allowed us to, be and follow our moral, positive views, then society would be in chaos.
I think there are two very important points there. Firstly, I think that morality is never totally positive in the sense you just make it up on the spot.
Yeah.
I think morality is the foundation of any group of people, and ultimately the glue that binds those people together is stuff like don't steal from one another, don't murder from one another. These are the foundations, because if everyone murdered everyone else, there would be no group. If everyone stole from everyone else, there would be no possessions, and therefore no need to have a group. So, but to go back to the torturing question, I don't think I'm bending my morality there. I'm met with a horrific dilemma, and I am ultimately forced to choose my family above my own self-worth and preservation, because that is my moral hierarchy of values. Family always comes first. So
isn't that a problem if everybody starts thinking like that?
Well,
you're going to put your family above the community.
I see everyone. I try and see everyone genuinely as my
It's not about trying. It's about
as my brothers and sisters, and as the human family and the human group.
But your family comes first.
I think deep down, yes.
But that's the problem.
But they are.
What if they're a bunch of morons?
Well, their stupidity has no reflection on my love to them.
Morons in the sense that they are detrimental to society. They're foolish. They don't obey the law. They do. Do you see? There are certain families that are just absolutely terrible and a bane on society. If a person puts their family above the community, then what you're doing is your morality is flawed.
I think the ideal position would be to have a community where we all regard one another as family, and therefore we don't need to confront these moral issues. Obviously, that's not the world we live in.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm interested in your view, which you said, and I appreciate the honesty. You're saying my family comes above,
I think their survival and well-being, because ultimately I serve them, and I also serve the community, but they are not equal masters. And I think deep down, if you search your heart, you would also agree with me that you prioritize your family above that of the
Not
group.
necessarily, and I'll tell you why. In our scripture, it says, speak the truth, even if it means going against yourself, even if it means going against your loved ones. And this embodiment of justice, which was in the Quran, was liked by the Harvard Law faculty so much that they've actually got it in their faculty as well, because they were looking for statements that comprehensively and very poetically expressed justice. And Strawborough, this is justice. That when the time for justice comes, you go against yourself, you go against your family. And there have been ample examples of this from the lives of the prophets, from the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his companions, then the ones that came after him. Our Islamic liturgy is completely covered with examples, and this is how we're told to live as well. And I don't think I'll be exaggerating if I say there have been many instances in which I've had to go against my family because they are wrong in a specific thing. In marriage issues, where they put culture forward that's detrimental to the child, even if it means that, look, I have said that, I will give my son to this girl, culturally. Say, but he doesn't like her. It's not going to be a good marriage. They're going to end up divorced. They're going to be miserable. No, but culturally, this is that. You know what? This is wrong. Islamically, it's wrong. You know what? Logically, common sense is wrong, and you have to fight against your family, not in a physical way, but in a respectful, in a loving sort of way. And sometimes the families do divide, and ultimately they will come together because our morality is objective in this regard. But the point, Strawborough, is this, and I want you to reflect on this, that if, and you know this as well as I do, there's always a bad apple in a family. There's always somebody that the mother will always be covering for the naughty child. The father will always be making excuses for the naughty daughter. And the thing is that it's when the father removes that barrier or stops making excuses and starts, telling them off and starts saying, you know what, I know you're my daughter, but this is absolutely unacceptable. And you know what, I don't know if you've seen, there's like a clip where the policeman wants to come and address the son, and he goes to the father, is this your son? He's like, yes, it's my son. Just sling him in the jail. Let him learn the lesson. And that's how it should be, Strawborough.
I think that's the greatest tragedy. That is
that's how it should be.
One of the deepest, most horrific things you could do, because you owe everything to your.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But if they're wrong, Strawborough, for the betterment of the community and of the society, has to be done.
But what happens if that society is corrupt and immoral? And you disagree with those laws, which
exactly
is the case many times. And I just think,
then you're going to get the Roman Colosseums, isn't it?
The thing is, laws and customs do come and go, but there are a few constants that you find throughout the world. Do not murder, do not steal.
I don't think you can give me one constant that can be applied generally.
I'm just saying that morality does have a foundation in our biology and in our human nature, and it comes from that font, the font of human nature, and not from the law.
Let me give you an example, Strawborough.
May I just say that?
Yeah, go on.
And I think that, as I said, I really do think one of the worst possible acts is to betray one's family or prioritise a set of moral principles, even if those moral principles are good and just, regardless if they're divine or not, above that of those you love. I think I know that, and as I said, I would even destroy myself and my own sense of moral worth for those who I love. I would sacrifice myself.
But that would be a problem, because your argument was pretty much in line with Kant's categorical imperative. But the flaw with Kant's...
Sorry.
Hey,
how are you?
How are you?
Great. Did you have cigarettes, man? Yeah, of course.
Oh, no, you as well.
That's how we started it. I think Kant had a very interesting project. He was attempting to create logically certain moral laws through the categorical imperative. You're right. I think I have my arguments do echo his.
I could tell. But here's the issue. With Kant's categorical imperative, Kant says that even if somebody comes to murder your husband, don't lie, because if lying becomes extrapolated and everybody starts doing it, then it's bad for society, and society is the thing that needs to be maintained at by any means necessary, to borrow Malcolm X's phrase. But what I'm seeing with you is you're weaving in and out of that, because let's just say you have a son. Your son is a liar, he's a bane on society, which we discussed before. You would say, and you would put the morality of, you know what, protecting thy family above protecting the community. And if that is now extrapolated and everybody starts doing that, that community cannot survive with principles like that, in which a person's trying to protect their family. Do you see?
But I'm saying that that's true, but most of the community, if they say put your family above the community, but also put the community very, very near them in terms of the moral hierarchy, just underneath family, if people actually follow that, then there won't be this collapse, a social collapse. The hierarchy, the social structure will not implode.
There's this analogy here, because there needs to be a distinction between the community above and then your family. There's a few options that we can have. Either community above and then the family, and then you can bring them close. I have no issue with that. But then the issue was when you said put your family above the community, because that then will precipitate, or not even precipitate, that would catalyze the downfall of the community. Because if everybody starts protecting their brothers who are lying, who are cheating, who are stealing, because you are to put the family above and that's the moral thing, don't you think that can cause issues in the community?
I just think I think the first thing you have to start with, the foundational principle that the individual is valuable and worthy and should be respected and treated in a moral way.
But I just want to get an answer to this, that if everybody is looking after their family, despite them having negative traits, would it not harm the community?
Yes, in that sense, it certainly would. But I think what you're doing is you're assuming that you can't be both loyal to your family and the community. And in instances where your family goes against the community, then this is a very interesting moral dilemma.
Yeah.
This is an interesting moral dilemma. And then the question comes, where do your true loyalties lie? With the community or with your family?
And where would they?
And deep down, I love my family more than I do my community. So I follow my heart and not necessarily my mind on this one. And I suppose that morality is wholly grounded in reason. It also has a strong emotional dimension. And I would just become a heartless slave of morality if I didn't follow my heart and my soul in this.
But Strava, imagine if everybody's following...
Fourth extreme, support your father, your mother, your brother.
You know what, I actually agree with you in the sense that family loyalty is incredibly important, and I'm sure you've been following the news and everything. Islam is at the forefront of protecting the family unit, and the family unit is something that's eroding, and people are not taking it seriously. So I don't want it to come across as if I'm against family values. I'm definitely for family values, and so is Islam, and we do need to champion family values. However, I guess what I'm doing is I'm saying in those instances, like you've correctly identified, that you have family members that are going against fundamental moral principles. For example, your brother has committed a murder, your brother has lied, your brother has stolen. Then in that instance, he needs to feel the brunt of the law.
Of course, I don't deny that.
And you need to give him up.
And
say, go forth into thy jail and rot in the jail.
No, if I heard the police knocking on the door late at night, demanding for me to divulge my brother's whereabouts, I could not tell them. My mouth would be sealed.
Yeah.
But I think with English law and marriage, this is actually understood, because a husband and a wife cannot give evidence against one another in a court of law, because they're regarded as being one flesh. So I extend that principle to the family unit. I believe we are one flesh, and therefore to harm them would be to harm yourself, both literally, because obviously they are our blood, but also on a spiritual level as well.
But just to bring it back to the principle that we've agreed with, yes, which is that if this principle is now extrapolated and everybody does this, society will not be able to function.
I agree with that, and I think if your brother has murdered someone, then he's facing imprisonment, then obviously you can't take I'm not necessarily saying you should take arms against the entire government or blow up the courtroom, but I'm saying you should still stand by him, even if he is flawed and even if he has sinned, and still remain loyal regardless of the immorality.
When you say stand by him and loyal, what do you mean by that?
I mean that he is still your brother or your sister.
Agreed.
And even if he has fallen morally, it doesn't mean your relationship to him has to fall as
Agreed.
well. So,
but should he be punished for what he's done?
Yeah, he should. Yes, because it's.
And should you protect him from that punishment?
I think you should do the most you can. But,
to protect him from that punishment.
I do think ultimately the punishment may be just and founded.
Starbro, do you see how difficult it is for me to bring you to a normative position?
I suppose this is, you have exposed the essence of the conflict within my position.
Yes.
You've extracted the conflict here. And I suppose you are right, but you are absolutely right. But I still think that even if everyone did this, I still would support their belief that family is above the group. And I think that the idea that family is not above the group has led to some of the most grotesque and hideous ideologies ever conceived by humanity. Communism, fascism, these are all movements which believe the family was subservient to the group. So, I do, obviously, I'm not saying the family in every instance should take priority, but your loyalty towards them should never fade, and it should always be greater than that of the group.
But I think that's where the Islamic objective morality comes in and says that if your family transgresses the laws of God that are ultimately detrimental to the community, then they need to be brought to justice, because, Strawbro, in the long run, that's you truly looking out for your family. Because you saying to your brother, you know what, you need to do the time. Why? Because you did the crime. When he comes out, Strawbro, you have to put your foot on your heart for that moment and let him do his time. Because so many people come out from prison and they say, you know what, I don't want to do that again. And rightly so, you're a human being, you have weakness, your family is your weakness. You will not let him go through that punishment because of your love for him that's blinding you.
My family is my greatest strength, and my love to them is my greatest.
But it's your love for
virtue.
them that will prevent them from growing. Because maybe your brother does need to go to prison to then rectify himself and come and be a useful person for society.
Well, in that instance, then I am being loyal to him because I think it's the best course of action for him to take. And in many instances, if your family have committed a crime and you try and hide them or they're on the run, that is a sad and miserable life that they will have to lead. So in many cases, I think, advising them to submit themselves to the law and to English justice, which is fair and impartial in most cases, is the best course of action. But I think we're really getting to a very profound moral question here, and it's a very interesting thing. But I see, when I look at the one, I don't see morality weaved into the tapestry of existence. I see it permeating from our love and our desire to be with one another, socially speaking.
Tell that to the sociopaths.
Yes. I feel they are cursed because they are born without love. They are condemned. I
don't think the brother of the sociopath is going to think that way. He's going to want to protect his sociopath brother from the...
But what distinguishes us from the sociopaths is that we will find the love within us, even to love these bastards.
So that's the thing, Strawbro, that because ultimately speaking, we are going to, like you said, look out for number one, us, and we're going to look out for our family. But sometimes our views are obscured. Like I was speaking to a very nice anti-Zionist lady. She's Jewish. She's anti-Zionist, and that's the view. So that's the view that she has. That she's saying that, look, I was indoctrinated by all this, and now I've come out of this, and now this is what I'm doing. But she says herself that it was very difficult for me to come out of that. And certain people are in an indoctrinated state. For example, the people in North Korea actually believe that the leader is looking out for us. people in Israel genuinely believe that Netanyahu is, trying to do the best for them by trying to wipe out another colored people that speak a different language and believe something different to them. So the point that I'm trying to say, Strawberry, is sometimes the individual and the family of the individual sometimes have been brainwashed, sometimes have gone through propaganda, and many a times, it takes time for us to come out and realize, I was in a totally brainwashed state. What I believe to be morality is absolutely untrue. You got a bit of that as well.
I do. Do you? The example you just used, I'm not very keen on Netanyahu. I think he's probably perpetuating the war to remain in power. But I do think the Israeli response, they had to respond because they were attacked by Hamas. It wasn't totally.
But that's the thing. We don't want to go on a tangent, but that's fine. Of course, someone who's attacked, they respond. But that's where humanity comes in.
Yes.
The question is, how much is a commensurate response when you've got 700 died and you can kill 30,000 and you're still going on? You're using weapons that are clearly illegal, like white phosphorus that burn through the skin, and the remainder of your life, now you'll get like 2 different types of cancers. So that's what we were speaking to that nice lady. She was saying that people in Israel don't get to hear the other side of the story. She says that either because English is not their language, or like they got Al Jazeera out, and so these are a few case studies that I gave you. You don't have to agree with them. But what I'm saying is that sometimes a person might think, oh, this is my realization of what is moral. But speak to people in that cult of that Christian individual who led his flock to the mountains and they committed a mass. I don't want to use the word like ending the self. Don't say the word because then it becomes demonetized or whatnot, isn't it?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's a moral position we can both adopt.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a YouTuber as well, so I obviously want to say certain things, but I will say and use certain words, I'll get shadow banned, I'll get demonetized, this, that. I know how that's
to clip the wings of creativity by destroying certain words.
That's what it is.
That's wrong. Yeah, that is wrong.
But Strawberry, what I'm saying is that how does that person know who's coming to a moral realization that moral realization is not a construct of his prime minister and the media that's around him?
The thing is though, like I think that even morality can exist within us or it can exist internally. But you can deny external morality, you can deny internal morality. So making morality objective doesn't secure it. It doesn't make it any more safe from objection, scrutiny or criticism. Both morality within and internally, whether it's created by God or man, is all vulnerable and it can be violated, and it's our duty to try and maintain it and keep it safe. So I think that we're both concerned about the moral erosion, and I don't think that making it objective and making it godly, historically that has not worked, because so many people through the ages have rejected the morality of God, even though they actually think that it does exist. So.
But just because somebody's rejected a morality doesn't make it false.
No, it doesn't. But I'm saying that to safeguard morality, making it objective doesn't actually do anything. Doesn't actually make it any stronger than accepting it. Probably does come from the human.
I would say so, because if you've got objective morality, let's just say you have a incredibly powerful family. They won't be able to manipulate a morality like the case in point of Henry VIII, who had to literally come up with the Church of England just so he could marry, and in the hope of getting a son. He literally created...
He was a moral monarch.
He was, but he created a church that is surviving till today.
Yes.
And he created this thing that is, again, living till today. But it's a form of morality. But if, for example, a Muslim does something, we can say it doesn't matter if he's a sheikh, he's an imam, Doesn't matter if he's,
I agree
you know,
with that.
yeah. You can use objective morality to prove what he's doing is wrong. However, if a person is leaving it to the individual, what you're doing is you're leaving it to variables that you can't necessarily control.
I agree with that, but objective morality, even in scripture, is subjective and it has been interpreted in many different ways. So it's also vulnerable and also very ambiguous. So I think that I do say morality is objective in the sense that we all want to live alongside one another. We all have a social intuition, and from that comes morality. And if you accept that everyone here possesses that, then maybe it's not external, but it's all within us. It's all the same within us. So that sense it is objective.
I'd probably meet in the middle with that point. I agree that there are certain parts of morality that are definitely innate within us. But there are many aspects of morality, like we discussed earlier on in the conversation, that do require delving in, that will have multiple schools of thought. That's why to say that people will agree on that sort of morality I don't think is accurate, and that's why having an objective source is important in those scenarios. For example, you might take the case of abortion. You might take the case of, for example, even cigarettes. Islam will take a categorical stance and say that it's forbidden. Why? Because it harms the self. And the self, ironically, because this is a point that you're bringing forward, you're saying, you know, the self is very important. Preservation of the self, preservation of the family. Based upon your very rule, Islam says that smoking a cigarette is forbidden, it's wrong, it's sinful. Why? Because you're hurting yourself.
But like, this is my point. Like, if you just go down to Edgware Road, everyone's smoking shisha. So,
they are. But shisha is different to a cigarette. That's the first point.
Okay. Even Doha, for example, that's another very popular substance. That's really bad for
What's that? Doha?
Doha, yeah.
What's that?
You know, the really strong tobacco you put in a pipe.
Yeah. But
if you killed me, I had some in Dubai. I was literally on the floor.
But with pipes, I don't think you're supposed to inhale.
Yeah, but
maybe that's
even
why.
So, you know, it really knocks you out.
Yeah.
But this proves the point that even if you believe in an objective morality that's written in scripture,
but there's a distinct.
It's still actually very subjective in your interpretation.
Not necessarily, because I guarantee, and I can go with you to Edgware Road, and if we speak to these very people, I'll say, are you smoking because Islam tells you to smoke, or are you smoking because you want to smoke? I can tell you 99.9% of them, because the 0.1% probably doesn't understand English, but the 99.9 that do, they'll say, because I want to, I'm not doing it because Islam tells me to. Do you see? So this distinction is very important to make, that just because you see a religious figure doing something, it doesn't necessitate that he's doing it because of Islam. He's doing it because of his own weakness. I'll give you an example. There are many women that initially they won't be wearing the hijab. You ask them, why aren't you wearing it? They say, oh, it's our weakness, we're working towards it, etc., etc. They won't say we're not wearing it because of Islam. So if a person goes, oh, she's not wearing it and she's Muslim, therefore, look, your morality is flawed, that wouldn't necessarily match, because she would say, you know what, I'm working towards it, it's my weakness, and that's where Stromer, free will comes in. And that's where your society, and that's where your society comes in, because I'm going to be honest, I'm born and bred in this country. I wasn't always practicing, and you know what, seeing the glitter and the glamour of the world, of course, attracts you. Who doesn't want to, marry, make, drink, be with women, do drugs, and jump on cars, smash a couple of windows, run.
It's debauchery.
You know what I mean? Who doesn't want to do that? But then what happens is you then start, when certain philosophical questions or certain sociological questions get posed to you, and for me it was mostly political, when people raised certain questions pertaining my religion, and I said, you know what, that's a bloody good question. Especially after 9/11, I did start questioning that, you know what, my teacher saying that, oh, Muslims are violent, my friends are looking at me in a funny way, I'm hearing in the news always, where we're going out, like, well, what is the point of a bid? And that's when I then did start questioning all of this. And then I started realizing that, you know what, this is actually a very strong stance, and the media is manipulating the arguments and the positions. And for example, I'll go to Saudi, I'll see people clean shaved there. But in Islam, you're supposed to grow a beard. but there will be people clean shaved. But Strawberry, you're asking them, why are you clean shaved? Oh, I like it. I watch a lot of Hollywood movies.
Why does Islam insist upon wearing a beard?
So the reason why Islam insists upon growing a beard is because it's preservation of the self. Yeah, preservation of the self, of identity, being one with nature. And this is one part of your body that there are numerous reasons. Number one is the distinction between a man and a woman. Yeah, when you look at a man and a woman from the back, you know, you see long hair, you'll assume that, oh, both of them are women. When you see both of their faces, I don't know.
Beard to make that distinction.
No, but you'll be surprised. I think if we go down and I ask you about some certain individuals, you'll say, you know what, I'm very unsure. But if you see a woman with a giant beard...
Good answer, like you're saying it puts you in nature, and that's absolutely fine. But I just don't
And I'll also give... Yeah.
Like but if you really insist that is actually a moral law which is written into the universe, I just cannot bring myself to believe that. And you surely see why I struggle to believe that. Like it's morally right to have a beard, and that is actually written into the fabric of the universe.
Let me flesh this out a little bit.
Okay.
If a person believes in God, accepts scripture, accepts the Prophet, then naturally they accept the law that comes with it. Yeah? So for us, because we can evidence God, the Prophet, the Quran, it naturally follows the law that comes with it is the law of God. Doesn't matter if it makes sense to us, doesn't make sense to us. It comes as a result of a logical syllogism. Yeah, or a premise, conclusion, sort of logical argument. So what you then asked with regards to the beard, this is the crux, because God says it, we do it. However, if we then go into it and you're like, but me as a non-religious person, how can you explain to me why you do that? That would be one part of the argument. The other part of the argument would be that, okay, if we then break this down further, a person growing a beard, as opposed to somebody taking a blade and then scraping the hair off their face, resorts to having ingrown hairs. You know, they say having a beard.
I think it's a good beard, by the way.
Thank you.
But
if I just finish the point.
Sure, yes.
Yeah. So with the beard, if you're shaving it, you've got ingrown hairs. You know, again, you can get cuts. You can get those cuts can get contaminated. When a person has a beard, it keeps the face moisturizes. It protects you from throat cancer. So what I'm saying is that although the law may be there in our scripture, the benefits, because God doesn't tell us to do something, most often God will tell us something that's good for us, good for our family, and good for the community as well. So there will be many reasons for that particular thing, but ultimately it will be because God has told us.
May I ask you a question? Out of the many, many different moral laws that God has told you, is there one you personally find to be objectionable or at least strange, something you would personally not like to follow?
Not like to follow, because there's something called the fallacy of presentism. Because I studied a bit of logic, a bit of philosophy, etc., etc. So whilst when I was young, a question like that would make me, that's interesting. However, the more you look into it and you realize that once the foundational principles of there being a God, a Prophet, and the Quran are airtight, it follows logically that the laws are from God and make sense. Yes, indeed, there will be certain laws that for us, in the current state that we're in at this moment in time, you'd say, you know what, that seems very unusual.
Can you give an example of such a
thing? A law, a law that doesn't fit in to current society would be, say, marrying a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, so that is something that in our society definitely would raise a question mark.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah. However, when you realize and you unpack this, you realize that the Islamic principle of marriage is that she has to be, or he has to be as well, physically ready, physically mature, mentally mature, and the third thing, it has to be socially acceptable as well. So the socially acceptability of something is also taken into consideration pertaining law as well.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Surely if the society is following the laws correctly, there will be no social evolution, moral evolution, or social evolution. It will be fixed and solid and stable.
But like any society, whatever goes up must come down. When you have a prophet and you have a holy book, that prophet passes away, that holy book gets changed. Well, other than we believe the Quran, which is the final testament, the Quran, which is the final testament, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who is the last prophet. So before that, indeed, if the prophet goes and then people change scripture, as we believe happened with the previous scriptures, then indeed, then society falls back into decadence and into chaos as well. When there is a lack of leadership, just like a classroom, if a teacher leaves that classroom, naturally, even though, and I can tell you, I worked hard on my class, but I could sometimes, as a test, I would leave the class just so I can eavesdrop, and I would notice they would start speaking to each other, they would do this, even though they're fantastic children. Yes. But that's just the nature of human beings. When leadership is not there, when, even though a law may be there, we still have free will, and that free will is subject to our society as well. If, for example, you've got naked women walking past you, you could be the most fantastic person ever, but you're gonna wanna sneak a glance.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Course, yeah.
Because that is a thing of
that
beauty.
Sounds glorious.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they should introduce that.
Well, they do in these nude beaches and stuff.
Actually, I was in a bar in Bethnal Green, and these two people came in totally naked, and I realised that they had adopted a totally different moral foundation to my own.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I think the most extreme, one of the more extreme ones. But again, I think.
Would you agree with that?
I think that I believe in the individual's power or freedom to do what they want.
What if your daughter's with you?
Well, I think if thankfully one of them's a woman, so my daughter would probably recognise the.
Well, one of them's a woman, the other one has a schlong.
Well, I mean, the Greeks had lots of naked sculptures, so I would take my children to see the beauty of the ancient world. They would have to see this already.
So you take him away from the schlong?
Yeah, I would try. Obviously, I'd be slightly concerned. I think the guy's a total lunatic.
Yeah.
It's called Naked Neil.
I got you. Strawberry, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, it is.
I think we need to do more of these.
We do.
And just unpack ideas one by one. Sometimes when we try to do all in one go, I think we definitely miss the certain nuances that I think we captured very well in this conversation.
I actually think I assume that you're here because your moral system has made you a better person, and you want to introduce people to that moral system in order to make them better and improve them.
Yeah.
And
well put.
And there are many things you say which I actually agree with absolutely. But then I think the only thing I find truly objectionable about your position is that it prevents someone from questioning their moral position, and that's very good for society. But it's very bad for the mind, and it stagnates our ability to question and imagine and journey through our positions.
I think that doesn't necessarily apply to number one, Islam, and number two, the Islamic empires of the past. Reason being because if you look in, for example, even in Muslim Spain, when Muslims ruled Spain for 800 years, Islam, or not only did Spain flourish, but Christians lived under Muslim rule, Jews lived under...
more about the individual, questioning your own beliefs as an individual.
Yeah, there's been many cases in which, whether they're philosophers or whether they're faqihs, they do question these things. I'll give you an example, even in hadith criticism as well. When a specific hadith comes forward, one of the criticisms of hadith is precisely this, that a statement has reached you and you are to question it. In fact, it's an ironic position, and not that many people actually appreciate this position, that many of the critiques of hadith more so are Muslims, because when a hadith comes, you're saying, okay, who narrated it? When did they say? Why did they say? What's this? What's that? Were they alive at this time? Did this happen? Did that happen? If it's not, they'll reject it. If it did, they'll grade it. So that actually takes place more in Islam. I don't think it gets given that much credit.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think that's probably what it is.
I think so, yeah. I don't hear many people genuinely questioning the existence of the divine or the Quran. Maybe the Hadith is questioned, but not the. I just don't know. I think that it requires a lot of confidence to potentially question your own foundations and potentially see them shatter.
But that's what you're going to do next time.
Because you might shatter with them. But you know, I'm looking and I want to find the cracks. You know, if you could actually crack my position, then I'd be incredibly grateful for you, because I'd reach a higher state of awareness and a deeper state of understanding.
Well, we started with morality today, and you saw, you know, a different perspective and a different aspect. So we're going to do the same when it comes to the Quran as well. Bring these points forward, and we'll do that.
Like together, let's smash our own beliefs together and see where the truth really lies.
Well, Strawbro, the thing is, I do this on a daily basis. That's why I come to Speaker's Corner, and I'm going to be honest with you. Objectively, I haven't come across a single person that has done it successfully. And I hope, you know, you're going to come and you're going to bring your points, and we're going to go through them one by one. And that's going to be the part 3 now of our dialogue, the Quran.
So yes, walking through the path of the enlightenment of wisdom to the
Fantastic.
truth. Let's journey down it.
Let's do it.
Yes,
Let's
forward
do it.
into the depths.
Always a pleasure, mate.
Pleasure, thank you.
And next time, I'll just take the mic off you, yeah?
Sure, yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Take
Bye.
care.
Yeah.
Bye. You prayed, Asr, yeah? Oh, yeah, bro, you're right.
Good.
I still haven't changed the description.
Good. It worked, you know.
Assalamu alaikum.
I submitted it and I referenced it in my essay.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. It is what it is, bro. Whatever can be done, it can be done, innit? You know what I mean? Alhamdulillah.
I think.
Salam. Salam. How are you? How long were you here?
I just literally